Hello, good evening, dear friends, Afghans and other immigrants. Welcome to this 16th session of the Afghan Association of Ontario online program in awareness of racism, discrimination, Islamophobia, and all kinds of hatred. This is an initiative of the Afghan Association of Ontario in collaboration with and funding by the Government of Canada to increase awareness in Ontario of the situation related to racism, discrimination, and hatred, especially the kind of hatred that is manifested in the form of Islamophobia. In this program, we bring experts and other people with experience who want to share their expertise or their experience, their stories with the community and with others. And we interview them for roughly about half an hour. We ask them some questions so to guide us in our interview and in this program, so that more and more people become aware that this situation exists and we can do something about it. Unfortunately, today our guest who was supposed to be with us developed some kind of illness and he is not able to attend. So today it is just going to be me making a kind of an assessment and review of all the previous interviews that we had and the lessons that we learned from it. I hope that if you are listening to this program, you will participate with me by asking questions, by putting your comments, and let's have a conversation on this topic. What is your experience? What have you experienced in your life? Do you know about racism? Do you know about discrimination? Have you ever had the experience that some people treated you in a way that is not becoming? They have treated you disrespectfully or they have made some comments. Please share that with me. In the meantime, what I would like to do is to share with you the summary of some of the interviews and the lessons that I have learned from them. And there are lessons for everybody. And I hope that you will share this program, on your social media so that more people will become aware of it. The first lesson that I learned in these interviews was that, and the research that I did was that during the pandemic, in the past 2 years, the reported number of cases that were related to racism and discrimination and hatred had increased on average 68%. And it was also surprising that there was a 72% rise in cases related to Islamophobia. There was a 68% rise in cases related to anti-Semitism. And there was a 64% rise of cases against the Catholic community. It was surprising. The other thing that I learned during these interviews and talking with people and doing my research is that Canada is among the countries where you experience racism and discrimination and all kinds of hatred in whatever form, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, or something, in any other form. It is the least. It's one of the countries where a lot of work has been done, and there are very few people who actually indulge in this kind of things. The majority of the people, for them, this is not an issue. Perhaps this is the effect of the overall Canadian society's cultural policy of creating a cultural mosaic of a multicultural society, and because we are not, we are not requested when immigrants come to Canada. We are not requested to blend in with the majority, but we are encouraged to keep our own identity, to keep the way we dress, to keep our traditional things, to protect our ties back to the countries where we came from, and at the same time contribute to the society, to build it, that kind of in a mosaic form. Perhaps that has contributed to the fact that racism is less in Canada than in many other Western or industrialized countries. Obviously, we cannot compare it to other countries in the developing world where the dynamics are completely different. We are looking at societies that are advanced, industrialized, developed, and where human rights and the rule of law prevails and is respected. In this regard, we also interviewed some people who are in the law enforcement. And while we are lucky to live in Canada, in Ontario, where these incidents are very rare, the incidents actually do happen. And we have examples in Canada of the attack on the mosque in Quebec City. We have the example of the Afzal family in London, Ontario, where they were overrun by a truck, not because, for simple reason that they were dressing different than the society, that they were Muslims, or the attack on the mosque. But there have been other attacks on other religious facilities for other faiths also. So Muslims are not the only victims of this kind of discrimination and hatred. We need to be aware of. Having said that, there are a lot of things that can be done at several levels. On individual level, we as individuals, whichever faith we belong to, whether we are, from the Sikh faith, from the Muslim faith, from Jewish faith or Hindu faith or any other religious faiths that exist in Canada, we can do certain things. And one of them is, because for me, all religions are good. They are there in order to regulate the interaction among human beings in the society, to regulate it in such a way that there is harmony, that there is love, that there is respect for life, etc. So considering that all religions have good points, then we, whichever faith we belong to, we can be very good ambassadors of that faith and present it to the society, to others. This is item number one that we do. The second thing is, if we expect that other people respect the way we look, they respect the way we think, they respect our faith, then we have to reciprocate it also. If we reciprocate it, then, the law of reciprocity says that, in English, there is saying, you scratch my back, I will scratch your back. So if we respect other people's faith, they will respect our faith also, and then they will not discriminate. This is something that we can do on an individual basis. We as individuals, we can contribute and thus reduce the level of racism, discrimination, and hatred. At the level of community organizations, also something can be done. There, the responsibility rests on the leadership of those community organizations. And in that respect, I commend the leadership of the Afghan Association of Ontario that has made this initiative so that more and more people become aware that even though a lot of work has been done in Canada, that kind of bias, that kind of racist attitude, and that kind of hatred still exists to a certain extent. and we need to reduce it. We need to eliminate it from the society. So community organizations have that kind of responsibility actually as citizens, as community citizens of this country. I think it is their responsibility and their mission to take some actions in two different fronts. One of them is to prepare the conditions for the members of the community so that the members of the community can be good citizens and good ambassadors of that community, of that faith. And at the same time, on another front, what they can do is to reach out to other communities, to reach out to the mainstream Canadian community and contribute collectively to the well-being of the Canadian society. What one thing that they should not do, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many other people that I talk to them, is to ghettoize their community members. To tell them that, no, you should not interact with the mainstream, that there are certain things in the mainstream that if you interact with them, they will influence you and you will lose your identity, you will lose your faith, you will lose this. That kind of rhetoric and that kind of preaching or that kind of bias, if it is propagated in the community, is detrimental not only to the overall society, but it is also detrimental to the individuals of that community and for that community. So that is something that they can avoid. What happened was that our guest had some kind of illness today. He's under the weather and he wasn't able to come and participate. So that is why I'm alone here. If you want to participate, you could have your comments, Mr. Skyzai, and then we could have a kind of a conversation from it. But unfortunately, the Imam and the Khatib, who was our guest today, is under the weather and he is not able to attend. Perhaps some other time when he is much better and we can do it, then he will come. So thank you, Mr. Zai, for participating, and I hope your prayers will be accepted for his well-being. Thank you very much. So we were talking actually about what organizations, community organizations can do. And if I summarize it again, is that they can do something on two fronts. One is to prepare its members for life in the Canadian society, to be good ambassadors of that community. And on the other hand, they can also reach out to other communities and to the mainstream Canadian society so that there is an exchange of information, exchange of ideas, and people are not ghettoized in ignorance. That is something that they can do. There is also an important responsibility in this respect that the religious organizations can do. I believe in Canada there is an interfaith organization where people of various faiths come together and they discuss all the issues that are common to all faiths. And these organizations, I hope, discuss the issue, that there are occasionally events that are happening, incidents that happen where members of one particular faith or another one are targeted, with racist remarks or violence or discrimination or hatred, whatever shape and form it has. That is another thing that they can do. What they can do also is, like when I mentioned about community organizations that don't have any religious responsibilities, but they just, try to organize the community and protect the culture and the identity of that community in this multicultural society. The religious organizations can also reach out to each other with the intention to understand each other and learn from each other, and then to collectively contribute to the well-being of the society. To also preach to their own members about the evil of racism, the evil of discrimination, and the evil of hatred, and to tell them why these are bad. Especially if people believe that there is a creator, and the creator has created human being in a particular shape and form, and that there is no difference between one and another. I am from the Muslim faith, and in the Muslim faith, it says that God has created human being, from a man and a woman, and then divided them into nations and people so that they will know each other and learn from each other. But it doesn't say that so that you will discriminate against each other. That discrimination doesn't come there. I also, when I interviewed the people from the law enforcement, their advice really got stuck with me, and I want to share it. And what they were saying was that whenever you are faced with an incident that has racism, discrimination, hatred, whatever form, whether it is anti-Semitic, whether it's Islamophobic, whether it is, against any other faith, that you don't become a vigilante and try to sort it out there or fight it, but try to collect as many documents as possible and then to report it to authorities. What I learned was that the public policies in Canada are really determined by and affected by the kind of statistics that are collected that determine, what has to be done, which kind of policy has to be implemented in regards to various aspects of human activity. So if there is an accurate statistic of how prevalent a particular thing is, especially racism, discrimination, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, etc., the more accurate information is provided and reported to the law enforcement authorities and to other institutions that deal with it, then the government can form appropriate, the different levels of the government can craft appropriate policies and implement them in order to eliminate that situation or to reduce it. So reporting is also very, very important. One thing that I found out during the research, and that is specifically related to the Muslim community, and I want to share it here, even though our time is coming to an end, but I hope that I can have a summary of it shared with you. And that is what I refer to as the Medina model. And the Medina model goes back to the time of Prophet Muhammad, when he started, when he got the revelation of the Holy Quran and he was spreading the Muslim faith. And then the Muslim community in Mecca was forced to migrate, go to Medina. So in Medina, what he established was, so there were the locals, and then there were the muhajirs, the migrants who came from Mecca. So they created a kind of a system where the muhajirs were not ghettoized. The muhajirs, as well as the locals, were given responsibilities for the well-being, the prosperity, and the defense of Medina, which at that time was called Yathrib. There was another system that I refer to as the Medina model that was instituted there by Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. In it, it has 5 components. As the way I understand it, has 5 components. Item number 1 is to work on yourself and be the best version of yourself that you can be. The second thing was to work on your family. Once you are at your best, work on your family and let your family be the best that it can be. The third thing is education, to educate the community and yourself as much as you can. Men, women to be educated, children to be educated, create that system and educate yourself. Education was so important at that time that during the fightings that occurred when they were invaded by people who wanted to eliminate Muslims, and there were these fightings, when prisoners of war were taken, they were not punished. As a matter of fact, they were said that, okay, they were given the choice. If you will educate so many people from the Muslim community so they can read and write and they can become literate, then you can go free. They will let them free instead of keeping them in prison. So to this extent, it was important. The fourth element of this model was economic well-being and activity, to focus on production, to be economically independent, to work for whatever you need in the society to have a better life. To the extent that in the Muslim faith, there is no a pause day like in Judaism and Christianity, where Saturday or Sunday is the pause day where people don't work. In the Muslim faith, they say that after Friday prayers, spread in the land and produce. So that economic activity was that kind of important. The fifth element and the last element was civic activity. And that was also, kind of regulated upon, as a responsibility of whether you are a migrant or you are a local. You had that kind of civic responsibilities for the well-being of the community. So people weren't ghettoized. They all had the responsibility to keep the community prosperous and defend it, and everything in it is working smoothly and properly. So if those 5 elements, we as individuals, as we come here to this country, we immigrate from another country, a Muslim country, since this program is about Islamophobia, we come from a Muslim country. If we implement those 5 elements from the Medina model, I don't think we will be facing any kind of Islamophobia, because once we are active, in the civic activities of the community, the mainstream people and other people will know that there is actually no negative difference between us and them, that we are as loyal to improving the life of humanity, of human beings, as they are, and then that is the best way we can fight. Our time is coming up, and I think I spoke too much. There wasn't a lot of engagement from the people who are listening. I hope that you will have some comments. I just want at the end to end this program. I will say that this program will remain, the recording will remain on Facebook. You can watch it, but at the same time, the recording will be posted to the YouTube channel for the Afghan Association of Ontario, and it will stay there also, and you can go and watch this or any other of the previous recordings of the previous interviews. You can do that. I also want to acknowledge that this program that you just heard is an initiative of the Afghan Association of Ontario in its um, in its struggle to fight racism, discrimination, and Islamophobia, and it is provided in collaboration with and partial funding by the Government of Canada. I hope you found some good points in this program. I hope that when you listen to it, if you have ever experienced racism, discrimination, or Islamophobia, then there are some points here that you can take certain action, report it, also be a better version of yourself, also become a community activist, participate in the civic activities of the society, improve your economic well-being, work on your family and yourself to educate yourself so you can be the best ambassador of your community, of your faith. And until next week, I hope you will have a nice time, and I hope that this issue that we talk about, racism, discrimination, and Islamophobia, I refer to this triangle of evil. We will talk about it less and less, because then it will be less and less in the society, and eventually it will be eliminated. So thank you very much for listening to this program. Please connect with us, have your comments in the program, in the chat, and let's look forward to another program next week or sometime soon. Goodbye for now.